So I was checking my emails and it locked me out. It wanted me to enter my password, but it never has asked me for my password since then. BBTA, the fun people they are. We're going to the Margaritaville Resort in Lake Tahoe. The Margaritaville Resort in Lake Tahoe. It's okay. We'll be back in our rooms. October. You guys get on. If you'd go to Good evening. Today is Tuesday, February 18th, 2025, and the time is 5 p.m. I will now call to order the meeting of the Victorville City Council and the same council sitting as the Victorville Library Board of Trustees, the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency, the city as a housing asset successor, Joint Powers Finance Authority, and the Victorville Water District. Madam Clerk, will you kindly call the roll?
Councilmember Goodham. Present. Councilmember Irving.
Here.
Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman.
Here.
Mayor Becerra.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. DeBernowski, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Becerra. We have two closed session items this evening. The first is real property negotiations pursuant to Government Code 54956.8. The parcel number is listed on the agenda, as are the negotiating parties. The second item is a liability claim pursuant to litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.95, and the information related to that is also set forth on the agenda. To the extent there's reportable action, we will report it at the conclusion of the closed session or the commencement of the 6 o'clock session.
Thank you very much, sir. We are now in recess to closed session, and open session will resume at 6 p.m.
I can't see.
Good evening. Today is Tuesday, February 18th, 2025, and the time is 6 p.m. The regular meeting of the following will come to order. The Victorville City Council and the same council sitting as the Victorville Library Board of Trustees, the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the redevelopment agency, the Housing Asset Successor, Joint Powers Finance Authority, and the Victorville Water District. Madam Clerk, will you kindly call the roll?
Councilmember Godin.
Present.
Councilmember Irving.
Here.
Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman.
Here.
Mayor Becerra.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Closed session announcement by Mr. DeBernowski.
Thank you, Mayor Becerra. We had two items this evening. The first was real property negotiations pursuant to Government Code 54956.8. The property is set forth on the agenda, as are the negotiating parties. The second item was a liability claim pursuant to Government Code 54956.95, and the information related to that claim is also set forth on the agenda. At this time, there is no reportable action with respect to either one of those items.
Thank you very much, sir. If you'd please stand, tonight's invocation will be led by Pastor Josh Gerbert with the First Assembly of God Church, and our will be led by Captain Randy German.
Well, again, it's an honor to be here tonight and to pray. And I want to say again, thank you to the City Council and City of Victorville for all the great work in our city and for our church. Let's pray tonight. If you bow your heads with me. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight with grateful hearts, Lord, for your goodness to our city. And we pray, God, tonight that you will help and guide, Lord, every decision that is made tonight. Lord, we acknowledge you as a source of our strength and the source of our wisdom tonight. Lord, we lift up our city leaders. We lift up our mayor, our council members, all those in leadership in this great city. I pray, Lord, for wisdom for them, for understanding, Lord, for discerning hearts, and every decision, again, will be made with integrity and compassion and justice. Lord, we pray for the peace and prosperity of this great city. Lord, I pray that you would strengthen every business. Lord, you'd be with every school. You protect, Lord, and bless every first responder and public servant. Lord, let this meeting be guided by mutual wisdom and mutual respect. And I pray, God, that your blessing would be upon this tonight. Lord, guide our city council members and guide every decision for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen and amen.
Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okie dokie. Tonight we have special presentation, a presentation recognizing Amy Calderon, winner of the city's annual Civic Rights Memorial Essay Contest, and Heritage Victor Valley Medical Group, sponsor of the city's annual Civil Rights Memorial Essay Contest. Down there. Okay. At this time, I'd like to invite Amy Calderon and Superintendent Lori Clark and Candace Sanders from Heritage Victor Valley Medical Group to come forward and join me. Each year, the City of Victorville invites local 5th and 6th graders to participate in our Civil Rights Memorials Essay Contest. The winner of our 2024 contest is Amy Calderon. Amy is a 6th grader at Brentwood School of Environmental Studies and a student in Mrs. Morat's class. Amy penned her winning essay about Claudette Colvin, a civil rights pioneer who at the age of 15 refused to give up her seat on a crowded, segregated bus. A portion of Amy's essay is about Colette Calvelon, will appear on the bronze plaque in our Civil Rights Memorial here at City Hall. On behalf of the Victorville City Council, I am honored to present this framed rendering of a black bronze plaque to you, Amy. Thank you, Sue. Yes. Congratulations. Superintendent Clark, would you like to say a few words?
So congratulations to Amy. While she doesn't say a lot, her classmates said she says everything, and her school. She's a leader, and by your word, you have been selected and recognized out of almost 12,000 students across our district. 12,000. So congratulations.
Thank you to our essay contest sponsor, Heritage Victor Valley Medical Group, for generously underwriting the bronze plaque. Candace, as a token of our appreciation, I'm pleased to present you with this frame rendering of the bronze plaque. Your turn too now. Oh, yeah.
Congratulations, you did great at the ceremony, and we are so happy and honored to be the what is 2020? Yes. So yes, thank you guys so much.
Yeah, no, now we'll go down. At this time, I'll turn it over to the city clerk swearing in of Captain Joel Jensen, Captain Max Chavez, and firefighter EMT Isaac Vasquez.
Okay,
Madam
Tim Clark. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight we'll go ahead and start with the swearing in of the two captains. So if I could have Joel Jensen and his father, Chris Jensen, come up front, along with Max Chavez and his wife, Raquel Chavez. Okay, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear
Joel Jensen, solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic.
that I will bear true faith
I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will,
that I will
well and faithfully,
well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter. Congratulations, gentlemen. You can go ahead and proceed with your pinning. Okay, now I'd like to call up Isaac Vasquez with his parents Lisa and Ricardo Vasquez. If you could please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear
I, Isaac Vasquez, solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
the Constitution of the State of California.
that I take this obligation freely
I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will,
that I will
well and faithfully,
well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
about the trauma about to end.
Congratulations.
Madam Clerk, will you please present the agenda and any revisions thereto?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have a revision to agenda item number 1 this evening. It's revising draft resolution number 25-015, attachment B, correcting an inadvertent error in the total approved building size approved by the Planning Commission to match what was originally assessed in the project's California Environmental Quality Act review of no more than 392,857 square feet in size. This adjustment is authorized pursuant to section 16-2.02.090 of the Victorville Municipal Code, which states that the city council may affirm, reverse, or modify the decision of the Planning Commission. It's also revising section 3 of the recommendation to read as follows. Adopt Resolution 25-015, affirming and modifying the decision of the Planning Commission as conditioned, including a modified condition of approval number 1, and finding that the project's environmental analysis was appropriately assessed via a mitigated negative declaration. That includes mitigation measures to ensure the impacts of the environment and community are less than significant. Madam Mayor, that concludes the revisions this evening.
Thank you very much. At this time, are there any conflicts of interest from any of my council members?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have one to report.
Go ahead.
I have a conflict of interest with agenda item number 22. I received campaign funds from Exquadrum, and I request to recuse myself from that item when it comes up.
Granted. And Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I also have the same conflict, so I'll be turning it over to you, item 22. Got it. Thank you. At this time, we'll go to public comments. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
Not during general public comment, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Appeal hearings. Our first business in order is item 1, an appeal of the Planning Commission's decision regarding planning case number PLAN 23-00003, a site plan with a mitigated negative declaration to allow for development of an approximate 400,000 square foot warehouse distribution building on 2 vacant M2 heavy industrial zone parcels, totaling approximately 18 acres, located at the southwest corner of logical extension of Cactus Road and Mesa Linda Avenue. Mr. Metzler, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. This item involves an appeal that was filed and relating directly to an item that was heard by the Planning Commission at its January 8th, 2025 regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting, where at that meeting it considered a land use related matter involving property approximately 18 acres in the general vicinity of US Highway 395 and Mojave Drive in the northeast section or quadrant of that section, more particularly at the location identified in the staff report. And at that commission meeting, the Planning Commission approved unanimously 5-0 vote a site plan, the site plan that was presented along with mitigated negative declaration. And so with that decision of the Planning Commission, there has been an appeal filed, and so an appeal of that action has been filed. And so therefore, because we're required, I believe, within 45 days to actually undertake the hearing of that appeal item, is why the item's being brought to you for consideration. And so with that, this item has been presented by your city planner, Mr. Alex Hadigi. He's here in the audience and certainly available to answer any additional questions you might have regarding this item.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable City Council open and conduct a public hearing, receive testimony regarding the proposed appeal, close the public hearing, and adopt resolution number 25-015, affirming and modifying the decision of the Planning Commission as condition, including a modified condition of approval number 1, and finding that the project's environmental analysis was appropriately assessed via a mitigated negative declaration that includes mitigation measures to ensure the impacts of the environment and community are less than significant.
Thank you. At this time, we'll do technical questions from council member regarding this item. Councilwoman Jones?
Oh, yes. Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Don't start my time yet, please. All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Metzler, when the city's general plan was drafted, was an EIR on this area conducted?
The EIR would have been for the general plan, which is a citywide assessment. So because this property and the land use that was assigned to this property was a part of the overall general plan, the citywide EIR would be in place.
Thank you. And how long does an EIR last? And is it good as long as for that period of time? Is it good as long as there are no substantive changes?
Yes, our current planning horizon with the general plan is from 2021 to 2029, I believe. And so with that, it's generally accepted that the EIR runs with that. And only in cases where it's determined that actions before the commission or the council have impacts greater than what was studied would it be considered at that time whether or not it'd be appropriate to require additional environmental, including an environmental impact report.
And were there any substantive changes on this?
Not in this particular case, no.
Nothing that would trigger a new EIR?
That's correct.
All right. And so there's a discrepancy on the square footage. It's in actuality 392,000+ versus the 396.
Staff has identified, since this item was actually published, looking through the documents, we have identified where, in fact, the initial study that was originally performed for this project actually studied a project size of approximately 392,857 square feet. And being that that was the studied square footage, that the Planning Commission likely should have considered identical square footage, where alternatively, the action from the Planning Commission actually approved a number of square footage slightly greater, approximately 396,000 square feet is what the Planning Commission actually approved.
And so what difference, if any, would that 4,000 square feet make in terms of doing an EIR?
The difference numerically is about 3,274 square feet is what we're talking about. We certainly view this as de minimis at best. Certainly don't believe that de minimis amount of square footage changes the outcome of what was studied, and certainly don't believe it's significant enough to justify further environmental review.
Okay, and then there is land across 395 from this prospective project. Does the city of Victorville have any responsibility to adjacent cities in terms of their future potential projects?
So if I might, and so that we're clear, this particular site, there's actually additional vacant property along with developed property that's directly between this site and the actual jurisdictional divide, which is US 395. And on the west side of US 395 then becomes the city of Adelanto. But Mr. Alex Hadigi, I'd like for him to at least address the coordination and the noticings that we offer to adjacent jurisdictions for projects that are in proximity to the jurisdictional divide.
Thank you, Mr. Metzler. Madam Mayor, council members. Yes, typically on a project, if it is on the boundary, we will notice a neighboring city. In this case, we historically go with our 300-foot boundary. Also, as part of the environmental review, all projects are posted on the State Clearinghouse website, and any entity that is looking to go through that review process is able to go online and review any and all environmental documents associated with the project.
Thank you. And Mr. Metzler, during the Planning Commission meetings on this particular matter, was the public given an opportunity? I know they must have been, but I want to confirm for our audience and my colleagues that the public was given an opportunity to weigh in on this important issue.
Yes, they were.
Okay. That's all I have at this time, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Godin?
Yeah, so I just to clarify, the revision, it's going to correct the square footage back down to what was originally assessed for this project. So that takes care of that square footage that wasn't accounted for.
What we've proposed, and again, since this was discovered after the posting of this agenda, what we have prepared and placed in front of you is a modified recommendation where that modification is effectively modifying the Planning Commission's decision, where the Planning Commission's decision was to approve a 396,131 square foot project. The recommendation that we have before you would be to modify their decision and only approving instead a 392,857 square feet, and the remaining part of the recommendation would stay intact, where we would effectively recommend the denial of the appeal.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilwoman Irving?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
I have one question. So the appellate did not show up to the January 8th Planning Commission meeting?
I'm sorry, I did not attend, but Mr. Hadigi, would you address that question, please?
That is correct.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
And I just have, Mr. Metzler, since you're a big soccer fan, 4,000 square feet is about the size of a soccer field, right?
Oh,
Give it,
you're testing my math. It's
Not much.
it's a very small area.
but not larger than a soccer field, let's say that.
Depends on which dimensions you're using because soccer fields do have different dimensions, especially.
Okay. I just was trying to get a picture in my head of how big, what we're voting on, so what's in front of us is approval of 392,857, correct? That's
My
minus
my
40.
math, a full length, regulation size soccer field is substantially greater than this difference.
Okay, so it's smaller. So what's in front of us is 392,857.
That's correct.
All right, thank you. And I have nothing more. At this time, I'll open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
We should go ahead and start with the appellant to provide any comments on the appeal. If the appellant is not here, then we move to the applicant.
Okay. Go ahead.
Is the appellant in the audience at this time? Okay, then we can move on to the applicant. Go ahead, Mr. Stino.
Good evening. Good to see you all tonight. My name's Tom Stino. I'm the architect and representative for the project. We have a great project in front of us. We went through a lot of work with staff, planning. They ran me through the ringer on it, but we got a great product out of it when it's all said and done. Engineering, we did a lot of road work on this. We did the turnouts for additional lanes. We worked with fire department. We were making sure our landscaping is correct. We went through quite a bit, but it took a couple of years to get to that point that night at Planning Commission. We were very happy with the outcome of the Planning Commission. We had a 5-0 vote in favor of it. We had the dais was full of supporters for this project. We had the unions here. We had folks come up against the project that spoke in favor of it, that we didn't even know who they were. So it's a wonderful project. It's a great location there. It's a signalized intersection off of Cactus and 395. There's additional projects right in the vicinity that's been approved that little area now can be developed. So we're looking forward to upholding our decision on this project and denying the appellant's case on this. Is there any questions for me on this?
Sir, at this time, we're not allowed to ask questions, Madam Clerk?
The council policy doesn't say that they're allowed to ask questions of you. You're just allowed to present your case. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. At this time, we'll take public comment.
Yes, Madam Mayor, our first speaker is Delshawn McClellan.
Hold on. All right, I'm good. I think.
You broke it.
Yeah, it's gonna hit me in the forehead soon enough. Okay, how you guys doing tonight? Again, my name is Delshawn McClellan. I'm a member of the Western States Regional Council of Carpenters, and we just wanted to get on record that we are in support of this project as well. The developer has committed to utilizing skilled and trained workforce and state certified apprenticeship program training. I live out here as well and work and recreate in the vicinity of this project. And I would like to express that my support for this project, as I believe that it will benefit the environment and local economy by practicing protocols that will protect workers' health and safety and incorporate adequate environmental mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Madam Mayor, we don't have any additional speaker cards. However, we did receive one public comment for this item via email, and that was distributed to the council and posted to the website.
Thank you, ma'am.
So we can go ahead and move to the rebuttal section. Although the appellant is not here. Mr. Stino did indicate that Mr. Fahim Faravar, which is the legal counsel, would provide any rebuttal at, should there be one needed.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members, and thank you for your time tonight. You know, I traveled from Los Angeles here, and last time I was here as well. The applicant did not show up. This project is incredibly important to my clients who have done this before, and they really believe in doing a good work for this city. And they've gone through a lot of resources to raise the funds to do this project. And you know, Mr. Stino has already laid it out that there were a lot of rigorous and transparent enforcement process that we fully complied with. And just to give you a recap, we truly believe that this project has been, you know, fully supported by the labor union and the local organization. We really believe that based on the experiences that we had, it brings significant diversity, it improves the city, it creates a lot of jobs for people, it definitely generates tax revenues, support local businesses, and given the fact that labor union is involved and local organizations are involved, it promotes fair wages, fair conditions, social equity, and it's creating new roadways, new bikes, and you know, extensive landscape. Last time I was here on January 8th, I was really touched by many union members coming up here to the podium and explaining their hearts, how this is important for them, for their job, and what they had to do to actually to go to work. Some people had to go drive 2 hours, 2.5 hours to go to work. And I have worked with this particular client for over 6 or 7 years, and I have seen the extent that they go to make sure, you know, with the type of work that they do, warehousing, distribution, to employ people, take care of the employees, and bring diversity and improve the condition of the city that they're in. So I'm touched by the fact that we now have an opportunity to bring this to the city of Victorville, and I hope that this plan gets approved. I have made several copies of numerous emails that I've sent to applicants ever since that they raised concerns before the January 8th meeting and after that, trying to communicate with them to see how we can resolve this. Never received any meaningful conversation from them. They even told me that they have counsel. I reached out to them even yesterday, trying to figure out what it is that we can satisfy them, because knowing that how this project is important for the city and how delaying this project it could be detrimental. They have not provided any valid evidence. They genuinely rely on boilerplate, you know, objections with no evidence, no, even the concerns they raise, they do not match the type of business we are in, which is, you know, warehousing, distribution, and never provided any studies. They don't even bother to show up here. I don't even think they're from here. And I have looked at some of the other objections that they've done with other projects, and I have genuinely seen no positive results from what they do. So I hope with that and the, you know, everything that has been provided to you thus far, that you affirm the city approval. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That is finishing that item, so we could go, you can move forward.
I'll now close the public hearing, and I'll invite a motion for this item. Motion to adapt staff's.
But you can go ahead, but I
Go
was
ahead.
going to, thank
No,
you.
go ahead.
So I move that we adopt staff's recommendation as amended, as 2.3 on the agenda, with points 1 and 2 having already been disposed.
Second.
And we're adapting the updated.
I said as amended, yeah.
Comments on the pending motion, Councilwoman Jones?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. First and foremost, I took great pains in really looking closely at this project. And I want to say first and foremost, I am not, certainly not in agreement with every decision that the Planning Commission makes. And so when something comes before the Council on Appeal, I take it very, very seriously. That said, I am not persuaded by the appellant's arguments or assertions. I think the attorney here made a great point in saying that they were boilerplate objections. I've seen these kind of objections on a number of other projects on other boards in the past. I am more than that disturbed that the appellant alleges that there was misleading language in some of the city's reporting, when in fact, to my mind, the appellant used misleading language by taking the mayor's quote out of context and seeking to align that with, yes, of course, we want to hear the public's voice, but to align her quote with the purposes of the appellant, rather than the mayor in that quote standing opposed to Assembly Bill, I believe it was 98. And so I am deeply disturbed by that misleading language. I'm furthermore concerned that the appellant did not find it important enough to attend the January 8 Planning Commission meeting, and did not find it important enough to come here, though not required, but didn't find it important enough to come and stand before this council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman, comments on the pending motion?
Build, baby, build.
Councilwoman Godan?
I'm very happy with the way that staff has handled this and for catching and addressing it. So I'm glad that the city is as paying as much attention to detail as we are, and I'm proud of this moving forward with this as well.
Councilwoman Irving?
I have any comments. Thank
I don't either. Madam Clerk, will you take the vote?
Oh, sorry, Madam Mayor, just one point, if I may.
Go ahead.
Because I meant to make the report in advance of all of this, as we're required as a council. I had no ex parte communication with any members of whether the applicant or the appellant or any members of the public on this.
Madam Clerk, will you take the vote, please?
Councilmember Godan,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman,
Yes.
Mayor Becerra.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve points 3 of staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda.
As revised.
Thank you, as a revision of presented on the agenda. Thank you. Second public hearing, item 2, an amendment to the Victorville Municipal Code with an environmental exemption to make various changes to citywide Title 16, including but not limited to new and updated definitions of new land use allowance and standards related to thrift retail stores, revised landscaping standards, and an updated and clarification to tentative track map approval periods. Mr. Metzler, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Also at the January 8th, 2025 regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission considered a land use related matter which effectively modifies existing land use provisions found in Title 16 of your municipal code. And with that, the Planning Commission, after considering all of the information provided by staff, also hearing any communication from the public, it voted unanimously to recommend these changes to Title 16 of the municipal code. And particularly, I should say generally, the code changes that were recommended forward for your consideration have to deal with certain landscaping standards affecting commercial, industrial, and residential units existing within the city. Some state mandated provisions of law approved last year by the state of California legislature dealing with thrift stores and the permission of thrift stores in general C2 zoning, along with timeframes allowing for residential tentative tract maps to survive. And so with that, because the action of the commission is effectively dealing with municipal code, this council is the body, the appropriate body to actually effectuate the change in the code. And so with that, we've got this public hearing to deliberate those municipal code changes. This item also has been authored by your city planner, Mr. Alex Hadigi, and he's available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable City Council conduct a public hearing, receive public testimony, and take the following actions. Find the code amendment exempt pursuant to Section 15061B3 of the California Environmental Quality Act. Introduce ordinance number 2454 for adoption and first reading by title only to amend Title 16 of the Victorville Municipal Code and waive further reading in full of proposed ordinance number 2454.
Thank you. At this time, we'll do technical questions from council members. Councilmember Irving?
No, I don't think I have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Godin?
I've already had all my questions answered. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Jones?
None, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
I have none.
And I have none. I'll open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. I'll now close the public hearing. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title of ordinance number 2454?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Victorville approving amendment case PLAN 24-00023, an amendment to the Victorville Municipal Code with an environmental exemption to make various changes citywide to Title 16, including but not limited to new and updated definitions, new land use allowances and standards related to thrift retail stores, revised landscape standards, and an update and clarification to tentative tract map approval periods.
Thank you. I'll invite a motion for this item.
I'll move to adopt staff's recommendation.
Second.
I have a first by by Mayor Pro Tem Harriman and a second by Councilwoman Irving. Councilmember Harriman, any comments on the pending motion?
I have none.
Councilmember Irving, any comments on the pending motion?
Comments. Thank you.
Councilwoman Godin, comments?
I have none. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilwoman Jones?
Thank you.
And I have done. Madam Clerk, will you take the vote?
Councilmember Godin?
Yes.
Councilmember Irving?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
Yes.
Mayor Becerra?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve points 1 through 3 of staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. Item 3, mid-year budget review and amendment request to fiscal year 2024-2025 revised fiscal budget. Mr. Metzger, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. As you're very much aware, on an annual basis, we adopt a budget, which effectively is our planning document for all fiscal financial expenditures and also our revenue generating plan. And we typically adopt that in June of every calendar year. And it's for a fiscal year planning horizon beginning July 1st and ending June 30. That's our financial planning cycle every year. And so as we adopt that budget, we use that budget basically as the planning tool carrying us forward, including planning for expenditures that are consistent with your strategic plan. We also, during the course of the fiscal year, review that budget document, and we typically do it at a midpoint in the fiscal year to evaluate any changes or updates that need to be made to that revenue and expenditure plan. And so we've started that process, back in December, and we're bringing effectively the results of that mid-year review to you for your consideration tonight. Of course, what we've provided for you in the staff report is a very high-level summary of a very complicating and voluminous financial plan, but we do have a brief presentation that will be made by your Director of Finance, Ms. Carmen Kuhn, who will key that up, and she'll provide some better detail of what you've been able to review in the staff report thus far.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. We're pleased to share with you a high-level overview of the changes being proposed for fiscal year 25 mid-year budget. There are several key objectives as to why the mid-year budget review is done. And some of the key drivers that we're going to be going through, some of the key drivers going through in this exercise is to demonstrate to our constituents that the city is fiscally sound. We are continuously monitoring and managing our finances in a responsible and effective manner. Having all departments review their adopted and revised budgets allows the city the opportunity to reevaluate our financial position and to identify changes to the landscape that were not visible back in April and May when we were preparing our budget, when the budget was being prepared. So furthermore, we want to make sure that the major review allows us to shift fundings to meet emerging needs and to provide all of you with up-to-date financial information to help guide decision making for the remainder of the fiscal year. Okay. There are some overviews that we're going to be looking at. Briefly, we'll be looking, we'll dive into the next few slides and we'll talk about the current fiscal year performance, some of the comparisons both citywide and fund specific, summary of the proposed adjustments for both revenues and expenditures, some key highlights as to the factors driving these adjustments being requested. And then we'll also come back and revisit our reserve levels and then ultimately the impacts of these adjustments. So when, excuse me, when we look at our mid-year budget overview, there's a couple things we want to look at. First and foremost, as Mr. Messler mentioned, this is data as of December 31st when we talk about our actuals. And so I want to point out that we obviously have the adopted budget, and that's the budget that we, you can look at our budget book was as of June 4th. We have a revised budget, and the revised budget takes into account any, obviously the original, but any additional adopted budget changes by council from July 1 through December 31st. And as you can see here with the revenues, our revised budget is 361 million. And our actuals through December 31st are 151. So we're tracking pretty well. We're at 42% as of December. And then our expenditures, we're going to see a big jump, right? We're going to see that our adopted budget was 377 million. And then we have a nice jump as to our revised budget. And so what made this jump? The 377 million that we adopted back in June, that actually contained 59.7 million of CIP, new CIP projects and purchases. The 456 million that you're looking at also includes the 59 million, but it includes an additional approximate $70 million of CIP that's been rolling over. So when we have CIP projects that aren't completed for various reasons, what we tend to do is we roll over those projects. And there's a multitude of reasons why a CIP project may not be completed on time. It could be new regulation, it could be delays in the in receiving the parts, it could be weather, it could be a plethora of reasons. So when you look at our actuals through December 31st, we're at 129 million or just 28% of that. So our expenditures are pacing much slower than our revenues coming in. And that's citywide. But when we focus specifically on the general fund, you'll see that we're tracking quite well, both with expenditures and revenues. We're at 43% with our revenues and 48% with our expenditures. Now, similar to the general fund, you're going to see the same with Measure P. Now, with Measure P, we have also a jump, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But our revenues are tracking at a nice 39%. And I say nice because when you look at our expenditures, it shows that they're tracking at 29. And let's talk about that jump that you're seeing from the 37 million to the 55 million. The reason you're seeing that is because there is 12 million that we're putting aside into a project, and that's for the future police station that we're planning for. At this point, we've been able to save $12 million to go towards that project. Additionally, we have 1.5 million in reserves, or the project, if you will, for fire apparatus replacement. But just like citywide, we also have a few CIP projects that have rolled over. So when you take into account the 13.5 million and you deduct that from the revised budget, you're really looking at about 42 million or 38% that we're tracking. So revenues and expenditures are side by side right here with Measure P. Okay, so a major comparison. Let's look at this citywide. Citywide, we have a revised budget of revenues of 361 million. We are requesting an additional 2.9, almost 3 million in revenues that we're expecting to receive as an increase, leaving us at 364 million. As far as O&M goes, we are requesting an additional 4.7 million. So what does that mean? That means that we're requesting additional expenditures of our revenues, or we're going into deficit approximately 1.8 million. But you can clearly see that our revenues are more than sufficient to cover our O&M cost. Now, when you bring in capital into the equation, which is the next line, that's where you see once again the big jump, the 57.9 plus the 70 million roughly that we're budgeting for. And so that's where you get the negative 94 million when you have revenues over expenditures. Okay. More closely and more specifically, we'll look at the proposed revenues for the general fund. And what we did is we broke it up by department. So if you look at just the general fund, we're proposing an increase in revenues of 720,000. We do have some ups and some downs, some increases and some decreases. But what you'll see mainly is that we have a big jump in the engineering area, and that's mainly due to, sorry, I have this pop-up that's completely blocking me. A jump in demand for services such as traffic studies, drainage studies, improvement plan check fees, inspection fees. And those are really like the big drivers behind that 697,000 increase. I do want to point out that we have a decrease, obviously, that you'll see here in building for the $173,000, and that's mainly driven by a decrease in business license, and that's just based on the tracking of how we did the first 6 months. Again, just like general fund, we'll focus on Measure P and how the departments are impacting the revenues there. There is a major drop in the revenues for Measure P, and that's really based on a $558,000, well, the net of it is $550,000, but the main reason for it is we have a lower than expected bed fee revenue from the Wellness Center recuperative care program. We're just experiencing a reduced occupancy and at a slower occupancy rates than expected. So that's really the driving force behind that. And then we have other governmental funds, and I know it's pretty tiny, but on the bottom, it's going to show you all the additional funds. Now, one thing we haven't mentioned is here at the city, we actually do manage 84 different funds, and they are categorized differently. We do treat them differently. So one thing to maintain or consider here with the revenue of the other governmental funds is the biggest increase we're going to see is with public works. And that really has to do with $125,000 is an increase in estimated from the latest highway user tax account of $116,000. Okay. And then, of course, we have our enterprise funds. And here what you'll see is overall requested or proposed in changes in revenue of 2.9 million. One of the biggest changes you'll see is 1.8 million from the water department, and that's a combination of things. That's roughly 1.4 million that is higher than expected revenue coming from the HDPP, or the High Desert Power Plant agreement that we have there. And then also 417,000 for increase late fees and interest income that was not anticipated. Similarly to that is a solid waste. We also have a very large increase there, and that's also due primarily because of higher late fees and interest income that was not anticipated. And so these are just more highlights. Some of them we just spoke about, so I won't go into all of them. One that I like to point out is the general fund police towed vehicle fees. Those were increasing by 90,000, so we're pleasantly surprised at how that increase has come in. We budgeted based on an estimate. This is our first year taking over this particular item, so we're quite happy with that. And then we do have some decreases, and that's mainly due to the reduction or elimination of some fees based on the recent approval of the master fee study. Okay. And again, we have additional information here. We talked about the 1.4 from the water fund. And then we do have a decrease in revenues from the airport, and that's mainly due to a delayed in occupancy for one of the particular buildings. They do anticipate to have that building occupied before the end of the fiscal year. Now we'll dive into some of the details regarding the expenditures, and this is again just focusing in on the general fund. What you'll see here, the biggest increase is with fire at 2.29 million. And I like to point out where that's really stemming from. One is when we did our budget back in June, we did fail to properly budget for fire retiree. Now this, I like to clarify, is for the former Victorville Fire Department that we had. And that's roughly 1.3 million that didn't get budgeted. Additionally, we are budgeting another 900,000 for overtime. We do expect that much of that overtime will be reimbursed back. Those usually for strike teams. Unfortunately, those reimbursements probably won't make it this fiscal year. As far as Measure B is concerned, again, we have several increases in expenditures. With information technology, that's actually a software that is going to be for the fire department. The fire department also has 21,000 for additional trainings and a scholarship as well. Excuse me. And then capital, you will see here 33,000, and that's to outfit a standby truck that's already been acquired, but needs additional equipment to ensure that we can use it for the safety of the community. Other governmental funds. Getting ahead of myself. So here you'll see a large jump in capital. One of the biggest items here is 100,000 that was budgeted for LMAT 3, the beautification of Brentwood. And I believe that has to do with the Paseo beautification of that particular project. You'll also see $70,000 for EDD, and that's actually the net of some increases and decreases. But one of the biggest factors is 192,000 that is being budgeted for the remediation of the New Way site as required by Lahontan. And then Public Works, we do have 168,000. And believe it or not, a big jump there is mainly electricity, and that has to do with unanticipated higher usage of the CNG stations. And then we'll move on to our enterprise funds as well. So here you'll see a reduction for airport, and that has to do with the deletion of an airport leasing technician. And then with capital, again, we have some very large capital reductions. We have removal of several CIP projects from SCADA fiber extensions to communication towers. We were able to find funds for roof replacement from other accounts and no longer needed to pull it from CIP. And then there's a 1.3 million water improvement project for the pipeline turnout 5, and that is a very large project that was fully budgeted for this fiscal year, but is all actually a multi-year project. So we're pushing out the expenditures accordingly. And again, just some of the highlights that we just mentioned. Let's see, anything different here? I do want to share with you a summary of personnel changes, and what you'll see in more detail what the personnel changes is actually there is a detailed companion item further in this agenda. I believe it's item number 16. But in a nutshell, what we had is we had 16 positions deleted from the table of org, and that ended up being a savings of almost $900,000. We did add 9 positions for $66,000 this particular fiscal year. Now that seems rather low, but because of various vacancies, the various departments were able to absorb a lot of the costs associated with these new positions, giving us a net impact of 7 new positions and a reduction of $829,000. Now, I know we did mention that we've been budgeting in deficit because of the CIP projects, but what you'll see here is that the cash flows have been studied and are constantly monitored. So even though we do have these large projects that make us seem like we're budgeting in deficit, we still have a very healthy reserve. We do require 17% for both Measure P and the general fund, and both are well over 50%. So what are the impact of all of these changes that we're proposing? It's to further support our strategic goals, to align the operational needs of the city and help promote smoother day-to-day operations, and to maintain a fiscal balance, right? Keeping our revenues and expenditures on track to achieve our budgetary goals throughout the fiscal year. So in conclusion, I just want to point out that again, we have a very healthy reserve. Our enterprise funds are experiencing higher than expected revenue, more of our expenditures in the amount of 2.6 million, which is fantastic. It's a great performance, this positive performance, which obviously contributes to our overall financial stability. And then with our constant ongoing monitoring of the potential adjustments throughout the fiscal year. We're here to obviously maintain and explore new ways to find additional revenue, do cost cutting, and everything we possibly can to maintain the fiscal health of the city. Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hold on. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable City Council and Board of Directors approve the changes reflected in this agenda item, along with the included attachments by adopting Resolution number 25-013 of the City Council of the City of Victorville, amending Resolution 24-037 as amended the budget resolution for the City of Victorville for fiscal year 2024-2025 relating to an appropriation of funds. Resolution number VWD 25-003 of the Board of Directors of the Victorville Water District, amending Resolution VWD 24-006 as amended the budget resolution for the Victorville Water District for fiscal year 2024-2025 relating to an appropriation of funds. Resolution number SCLAA 25-003 of the Board of Directors of the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, amending Resolution SCLAA 24-003 as amended the budget resolution for the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority for fiscal year 2024-2025 relating to appropriation of funds. Resolution number CHAZ 25-001 of the City Council of the City of Victorville as a housing asset successor to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, amending Resolution CHAZ 24-003 as amended the budget resolution for the city as the housing asset successor for fiscal year 2024-2025 relating to an appropriation of funds. Resolution number LBT 24-001 of the Library Board of Trustees, amending Resolution number LBT 24-002 as amended the budget resolution for the Victorville Library for fiscal year 2024-2025 relating to an appropriation of funds.
Wow.
That was
What she said. At this time, we'll do technical questions from council members. Councilmember Godin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I just want to clarify, and I already have the answer to this, but just so my colleagues and the public know as well, one of the major deficits we talk about with Measure P specifically was a issue with a lower than expected bed fee revenue from the Wellness Center specific to the recuperative care beds. It's my understanding that these beds are specialized for maybe a more extensive care for the patients. But I also am under the understanding that they have now already been appropriated for dual use so that going forward, we can correct this problem and these beds can then be utilized. Is that correct?
Yes, and for the benefit of the council and for the benefit of the public, just to elaborate on that a little bit further. So you're right, we did see a revenue decrease of about $558,000. And that largely has to do when we actually developed the business plan for the Wellness Center. One of the visions that we had as a part of the business plan, both focusing on the revenue generation. Obviously, there's a lot of grant funds that we depend upon to fund the larger operation, but one element of revenue that we built into the business model is recuperative care revenue, which is largely Medicare revenue associated with those that need housing, but also need to be on a medical recuperative care plan. And so when we developed the business model at the beginning of this effort, we were programming or budgeting, if you will, 55 beds to be used to generate that recuperative care revenue. We're tracking at about 35 recuperative care residents that not only need shelter, but also need medical attention. And so that difference, the 20 that we're talking about, those don't just sit idle. In fact, we've adjusted to make those beds available to the general population that needs those beds. So with that, because we've recognized that we're not able to track as high as we envisioned for the recuperative care revenue, we've adjusted to make sure still the beds are available for general population.
Excellent. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Councilwoman Jones?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, Mr. Metzler, I certainly think there are things to celebrate in this report, and I think that there are some minor concerns, especially in keeping with our goal to present ourselves as fiscally responsible to our community. I do have a question. There was comment made about the 1.3, I think it's $1.3 million on the fire retirees this was from the former fire department, but that's been on the books all along. How did we miss this?
It was certainly an oversight. We've definitely planned for that expenditure in previous years. And I can't say anything other than it was an oversight as a part of the original planning process. But I think that's in large part what's good about the mid-year is it provides us an opportunity to correct all errors or projections that we just missed.
Agreed. So I want to piggyback a little bit on what Councilmember Godin was speaking about, and that's the recuperative care beds at the Wellness Center. Recuperative care could be any kind of medical need. I mean, from serious mental health treatment or some kind of minor physical health. Does it run the gamut?
To give you a more accurate answer, let me have Scott Webb, Deputy City Manager, speak to that.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. So recuperative care, these are ambulatory patients. These are typically patients that would be exited from a hospital with recuperative care prescriptions. They need wounds. They have wounds that need to be cared for. They may have prescriptions that they need to take. You and I would typically be discharged home. With that, the hospital needs to find a place to put them where they have care or they have to keep them in the hospital. So these are folks that are no longer needed to stay in a hospital, but still require some level of care.
Okay, and I love that component because it frees up our beds too in our hospital, in our hospitals. Those are very much needed. That's, I think, all I have at this point. I'm always thankful for the mid-year budget. It's good to keep track of where we are so that we don't have any major surprises at the end of the year. Thank you, Mr. Metzler. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilwoman Irving?
Yes, first of all, to our finance director, thank you very much for the fine presentation. And as I listened attentively, two issues caught or piqued my interest. One has already been addressed. I want to thank my colleague, Councilmember Godin, for asking the question regarding the unexpected lower bed occupancy at the Wellness Center. The other one is simply a clarification. You mentioned something about a decrease in business licenses. Did you not? Did I hear that as it relates to revenue? Did you say that's a common trend, or what did you say?
No, not a common trend. It's just we're adjusting our revenues downward based on how it's been trending the first 6 months of the year.
Oh, okay. I misheard.
That's okay.
Thank you very much. That's it. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mayor Protem Harriman?
My question was already asked and answered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good report. Thank you.
I'll open up the public hearing at this time. Madam Clerk, is there any request to speak?
No, Madam Mayor.
I'll now close the public hearing and invite a motion for this item. Motion to adopt staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda from points 1 through 5.
Second.
The only comments I have is, Mr. Metzler, to you and staff and to the employees, thank you for everything they do to bring us a fiscal budget. I understand in some areas, yes, we are upside down, but they do everything we can to present to us a balanced budget. Thank you. Councilwoman Irvin?
I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Councilwoman Godin?
I have none, thank you.
Councilwoman Jones?
None, thank you.
Mayor Protem Harriman?
I have none.
Madam Clerk, will you take the vote, please?
Councilmember Godin?
Yes.
Councilmember Irving?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
Yes.
Mayor Becerra?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve staff's points 1 through 5 on staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. Consent calendar, items 4 through 15. I'll invite a motion for this item.
Madam Mayor, I move that the council and the council acting on its various boards adopt staff's recommendation as to the items presented on the agenda on the consent calendar.
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you take the vote, please?
Councilmember Godin?
Yes.
Councilmember Irving?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
Yes.
Mayor Becerra?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action items 4 through 15 in accordance with recommendations as set forth on the agenda. Written communications, item 16, benefits resolution number 25-010, and the employee's salary schedule. Mr. Metzler, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. This item is somewhat of a companion item to the mid-year budget adoption that we just considered and approved. And some of what's contained in this item, you've actually already seen as a part of the previous presentation. But it's typical that this item contemplates all of the position additions, the deletions and title changes to make up what's called our position control. And effectively, the position control that's adopted or approved in this type of an action item effectively becomes the framework of staffing that we can work with to actually execute in the roles that we serve. And so with that, the only thing different that this item does that you haven't already seen is it also addresses any recommended changes necessary to the benefits component of the resolution. And so there were some changes particularly identified in the staff report, especially as they relate to certain legislation that was approved, along with a change in the maximum amount that can be contributed to the city's 457 retirement account that's available to employees. So with that, this item has been authored by your Human Resources Director, Ms. Heather Barber. She's here available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable City Council adopt Benefits Resolution Number 25-010, establishing the employee salary schedule and amending fringe benefits effective February 18th, 2025.
At this time, we'll do technical questions from council member regarding this item. Councilwoman Jones.
None, thank you.
Councilmember Godin.
None, thank you.
Councilmember Irvin.
No questions.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman.
I have none.
And I have none. I'll invite a motion for this item.
Move to adopt staff recommendation as presented in the agenda.
Second.
We have a first by Councilwoman Godin and a second by Councilwoman Irvin. Councilwoman Godin, any comments on the pending motion?
None, thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Irvin.
No comments, thank you.
Councilmember Jones.
And thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman.
I have none.
And I have none. Madam Clerk, will you take the vote?
Councilmember Godin?
Yes.
Councilmember Irving?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
Yes.
Mayor Becerra?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. Item 17, purchase of a Rover X-RT SAT-200 mainline and lateral launch inspection system 2024 E-Transit cutaway with a 16-foot studio bailed out. Are we buying a mobile home?
It is-
Mr. Metzler, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. This item has been brought forward in support of the city collection system, or I'm sorry, the city sewer survey crew. Boy, couldn't get that out. As a part of our routine activities, we do have a crew that's focused on the survey and the inspection of all of our collection lines throughout the city. We do that with one unit, and this particular item actually authorizes the purchase of a second CCTV van that would be used to expand our capability in terms of being able to investigate sewer lines throughout the city, but then also to provide backup in case the primary unit that we currently operate goes down. And so with that, the item has been authored by your Director of Public Works and Water, Mr. Doug Matthews. He's here and available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable City Council award Hacker Equipment Company as the authorized distributor the piggyback purchase of a Rover X/RX SAT 2.0 mainline and lateral launch inspection system, which includes a 2024 Ford E-Transit cutaway vehicle with a custom 16-foot studio build-out for an amount not to exceed $504,912.18 under Source Bill Contract Number 120721-EVS.
Thank you. At this time, we'll do technical questions from council members. Councilwoman Jones?
None, thank you.
Councilwoman Godin?
I have none, thank you.
Councilmember Irvin?
No questions, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
Yeah, is this a camera to go down in the sewer system?
Well, that would be the associated equipment, but we do have a van that we drive around the city that this item is largely purchasing, but the type of equipment that would be in the van would be cameras, different sizes of cameras that can actually be launched into the sewer system, likely through a manhole, and then eventually be able to traverse through the actual sewer lines to identify any issues with the sewer line, including blockages.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
And I have none. I'll invite a motion for this item.
I move to adopt staff recommendation as presented in the agenda.
Second.
I have a first by Councilmember Godin, second by Mayor Pro Tem Harriman. Councilmember Godin, any comments on the pending motion?
None, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
I have none.
Councilwoman Irving?
No comments.
Councilmember Jones?
None, thank you.
And I have none. Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote?
Councilmember Godin?
Yes.
Councilmember Irving?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
Yes.
Mayor Becerra?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. Item 18, purchase of new fleet vehicles and equipment for fiscal year 2025 under Project JM 25-041, 32 vehicles. Mr. Metzler, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. This item effectively deals with, in one action item, considering and approving the purchase of vehicles for a variety of the departments throughout the city that either need new vehicles or need replacement vehicles of older aged vehicles that we currently use. And so with that, we go through a purchasing process to determine the lowest bid and the most responsive. And so with that, the item has been authored by your Director of Public Works and Water, Mr. Doug Matthews. He's available for any questions or comments you might have.
Madam Clerk, will you please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable City Council, also sitting as the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority and Victorville Water District Board of Directors, approve the purchase of 23 vehicles from Ken Grody Ford for an amount not to exceed $1,400,277.01. Approve the procurement of the remaining 9 vehicles through several procurement methods, such as cooperative purchasing programs, lead agency piggyback programs, and availability of suitable dealer lot inventory with a 10% contingency due to market volatility, bringing the total budget for these vehicles to $1,037,300, and authorize the city manager, executive director, and general manager to execute any and all documents necessary for such purchases.
Thank you. At this time, we'll do technical questions from council members. Mayor Potem Harriman,
I have none.
Councilmember Irving,
Questions?
Councilmember Godin,
And thank you.
Councilmember Jones,
None, thank you.
and I have none. I'll invite a motion for this item.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move that the City Council and the Council acting on the Board of Directors for SCLAA and the Victorville Water District adopt staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda.
Second.
I have a first by Councilmember Jones, a second by Mayor Potem Harriman. Councilmember Jones, any comments on the pending motion?
I have none, thank you.
Mayor Potem Harriman,
I have none.
Councilmember Irving,
No comments, thank you.
Councilmember Godin,
None, thank you.
and I just have one. Mr. Metzler, page 1526. Are they buying you a bike? 50,000? They're buying you a bike. Yeah. That's it. Those are my comments. Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote?
Councilmember Godin,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
Mayor Protem Harriman,
Yes.
Mayor Becerra.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. Item 19, Building 724 Heating, Ventilation, and Air Conditioning System Replacement. Mr. Metzler, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. This item probably should sound familiar, and if it does, it's because we had dealt with a similar item at the December 17th, 2024 meeting involving the same building, Building 724. And that building has been identified as staff as really requiring a complete HVAC system replacement. And the council even awarded a contract based upon staff's recommendation. But since that time and after the approval by the council, we did get information from the awarded bidder that they were changing their pricing. And so therefore we had to reevaluate their cost compared to others. And so with that, this item's been brought back effectively to further the same scope of work, however, rejecting the updated bid from the previously awarded and basically awarding to the next in line provider. And so with that, this item's been authored by your airport director, Mr. Eric Ray, and he's available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority Board of Directors reject FM Thomas Air Conditioning, Inc. award to furnish and install a new HVAC system at Building 724, previously approved by the board on December 17th, 2024, and approve Amendment 4 to the General Services Provider Standard Agreement between SCLAA and Allison Mechanical, Inc., increasing the not-to-exceed compensation amount from $50,000 to $150,000, and approve Allison Mechanical, Inc. to furnish and install a new heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system at Building 724.
Thank you. At this time, we'll do technical questions from council members. Councilmember Godin,
I have none, thank you.
Councilmember Jones,
None, thank you.
Councilmember Irving,
No questions, thank you.
Mayor Protem Harriman,
I have none.
and I have none. I'll invite a motion for this item.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move that the SALAA Board of Directors adopt staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda.
Second.
I have a first by Councilwoman Jones, a second by Mayor Protem Harriman. Councilwoman Jones, any comments on the pending motion?
Just that, well, first of all, Mr. Metzler, thank you so much to you and your team for catching this. Every penny counts. It's appreciated. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mayor Protem Harriman,
I have none.
Councilwoman Godin,
None, thank you.
Councilmember Irving,
No question, no comments.
and I have none. Madam Clerk, will you take the vote?
Councilmember Godin,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
Mayor Protem Harriman,
Yes.
Mayor Becerra.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. Item 20, standard sublease agreement for buildings 868, 868A, 869, and 835 by and between Southern California Logistics Airport Authority and Androl Industrials, Inc. Mr. Metzler, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. The council acting as the Airport Authority Board of Directors on February 4th, 2025, actually approved the termination of a lease for these facilities, and more so related to a previous tenant that was experiencing financial issues and was subjected to an assignment for the benefit of creditors. And so with that, as the council approved at that meeting, the termination of the lease, the subject site, the subject facilities have become available, and we've certainly been working diligently with a company called Androl to basically release those same facilities with a new tenant. So we've done that, and that's what this item is effectively doing, is it's bringing forward our standard sublease agreement for the same facilities with an initial term of 3 years and a 3-year option to extend. And so with that, the financial information regarding the transactions contained in the staff report. The author on this item is your airport director, Mr. Eric Gray, and he's available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority Board of Directors approve entering into a standard sublease agreement for Building 868, 868A, 869, and 835 by and between the SCLAA and Androl Industries, Inc., and authorize the Executive Director to execute said agreement and adopt Resolution Number SCLAA 25-004, amending the 2024-2025 budget, decreasing revenue in airport account 4501175A-45200 by $101,150.71.
Thank you. At this time, we'll do technical questions from council members. Councilmember Jones?
Oh, yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Metzler, the request to reduce the revenues by $101 some odd thousand, was that included in the mid-year budget that we just heard?
Mr. Ray, do you want to address that? How did you plan for the budgeting of the revenue?
Thank you. I don't believe that is. We try not to count our chickens before they hatch, and we don't really know what for sure is going to happen
Glad to hear
until
it.
you're done here. Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Metzler, if I recall correctly, I read in the report that the new tenant is going to do some $400 some odd thousand in improvements. Is that correct? And when this came, the item for the former tenant came before us, we were going to take advantage of the time to do a lot of work that needed to be done. Is this going to handle that?
Mr. Ray, do you want to address the improvements?
Sure. I think there may have been a misunderstanding. The previous tenant had an agreement to do about $300,000 worth of improvements. They did about 600 or 580
Gotcha.
or so. So that was what happened last time around. This time, this tenant is looking to do about $400,000. So we're going to credit them some of that money back, about 50% of that back. But we anticipate they're going to spend well over $1 million.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Godin?
And so this $100,000 deficit, this is due to the gap in having a tenant in the building?
It's due to that. It's due to the time period that we're transitioning from one tenant to the other. So we're essentially in this lease giving them a period of a reduced rent for those first number of months so they can make improvements.
And we're prorating that.
Yes.
Do we expect this to provide any local jobs?
Oh yeah.
Do we have an idea of maybe how many?
We don't. I mean, we know that the word local becomes kind of a funny word. They're down in Orange County right now, and they've got a staff there. What they're doing is anticipating moving that staff up over here, or at least parts of that staff over there. Don't know exactly how much that. We've asked that question. They're not sure yet how much of that movement is going to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Versus people commuting.
Wonderful, thank you. That's it, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Irving?
I don't have any questions.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
No questions.
When I have done, I'll invite a motion for this item.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move that the SCLAA Board of Directors adopt staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda.
Second.
I have a first by Councilmember Jones, a second by Councilmember Godin. Councilmember Jones, comments on the pending motion?
None, thank you.
Councilmember Godin, comments on the pending motion?
None, thank you.
Councilmember Irving?
No comments, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
Yes, when you said you had somebody lined up, you weren't kidding. That's all I have.
And I have none. Madam Clerk, will you take the vote?
Councilmember Godin?
Yes.
Councilmember Irving?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
Yes.
Mayor Becerra?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. Item 21, approval of new legal services agreements for the city attorney. Mr. DeBernowski, would you kindly introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor Becerra and honorable council members. Yes, I am seeking a new 3-year contract. My contract is set to expire this year, but as a function of increased costs of doing business, I'm seeking a slightly earlier reconsideration of the contract. The increases in fees equates to approximately 18%, but it's been 17 years since I've last asked for an increase. And if you approve this contract, we'll hold those fees for the next 3 years, assuming you're willing to accommodate the request. In addition, we have added one other provision that basically deals with the termination for anything but cause, seeking a 4/5 vote. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Metzler, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Nothing further at this time.
Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
It is the recommendation that the Honorable City Council consider approval of a new legal services agreement for the city attorney.
Thank you. Questions from council members? Councilmember Jones?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. Is it, and Mr. DeBornowski, I suppose I asked this of you, in the world of city attorneys, is it typical to wait 17 years? I mean, that seems very gracious to me, but is that typical?
It's certainly not typical. In fact, a lot of city attorney contracts have like escalators that go on. And I think these rates that I'm proposing are consistent, probably even a little less than what a lot of the other city attorneys are charging. They're certainly significantly less than private sector attorneys charge.
Oh, I know, and I've paid a lot more 15 years ago.
I've just enjoyed working for the city, so, it hasn't been a priority to increase fees in the last 17 years. My mistake.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Godin?
I have none, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
Not a raise in 17 years?
Again, yes, it hasn't been raised in 17 years.
What a generous guy. I have none. Thank you.
Councilmember Irving?
I just have one question. For the last 17 years, you have not had in your contract, you haven't found a need to include a termination clause?
No, we have termination
Oh.
clauses in there. The difference here is on terminations for anything but cause would require a 4/5 vote. Previously, it was just a majority vote.
I see. Okay, thank you.
And I have none. I'll invite a motion for this item.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the new legal services agreement for the city attorney.
Second.
I have a first by Councilmember Jones, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Harriman. Councilwoman Jones, any comments on the pending motion?
I do. Well, first and foremost, I'm going to take the opportunity to thank Attorney Deportnowski for many years of devotion to our city. We don't always agree, but I always get the answers that I can rely on. And I thank you for forbearance and certainly the grace that has been offered to the city in not asking for an increase in 17 years. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman,
I have done. Thank you.
Councilwoman Godin,
I just also want to say thank you for all the years of service for our city.
Councilwoman Irving,
No comments.
and Mr. Deportowski. Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote?
Councilmember Godin,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving, Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman,
Yes.
Mayor Becerra.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We've now taken action to approve staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. At this point, I'm going to be turning the meeting over to the Mayor Pro Tem. Have fun. Mrs. Godin, would you like to join me?
Discussion and possible action to rename Mustang Street to a Quadrum Way at the Southern California Logistics Base. Mr. Metzler, would you introduce the item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. This item was requested by the council that it be agendized and discussed. And that was a result of a letter having been submitted from Exquadrum, which is a highly valued tenant that operates out at Southern California Logistics Airport, where it's been requested in that letter, and the letter is attached, that the council consider the renaming of Mustang Street to an Exquadrum Way. And so with that, that is why this item is before you tonight. We did share as staff a little bit of additional information regarding what we could learn. And unfortunately, while the request sounds like a simple request, it's not as simple as it sounds, in large part because what Exquadrum is asking for is to rename a street that isn't an existing legal street. It certainly had served as a street back when the George Air Force Base operated, so Mustang may sound familiar. However, as a part of the remapping process involving a lot of the properties out there, Mustang Street was not recorded as an actual legal roadway. And in fact, the better way to describe what's being referred to as Mustang Street is effectively a driveway upon private property, basically allowing access to the adjacent property, which is where Exquadrum currently operates its headquarter operation. And so with that, the request not being simple is why staff is taking the initiative to recommend against this. But with that, staff would certainly intend that as a part of that recommendation, that the entire issue be referred back to staff so that staff can work with Exquadrum to find a ways to satisfy its needs, which is providing directional assistance to its facility from Phantom. And so with that, that's all I have at this time, certainly available for any additional questions or comments you might have.
Madam Clerk, would you please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable City Council and Board of Directors deny the request to rename Mustang Street to Exquadrum Way based on the fact that Mustang Street is not a dedicated public road.
Okay, are there any questions from council members regarding the item? We'll start with Leslie, or Ms. Irving, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm still Leslie. Okay.
That's-
No, I just, my understanding, based on what I've read and what I've heard, is that Mustang Street is not actually legally Mustang Street. Thereby, we can't name it Exquadron. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that staff is willing to work with this company uh, to further help them meet their needs. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Metzler, so I mean, I understand the rationale. When thinking about the possibility of the council moving to have staff connect again with Exquadrum to see what might be done to make things clearer in terms of signage, et cetera. Do you have anything in particular in mind that you could share with us at this point that might be helpful?
Thank you, Councilmember Jones and members of the council. Yeah, the first place to start certainly would be having them working with our staff in at least beginning with the adopted sign program that already exists relative to the specific plan for SCLA. And so there is an existing framework that is already adopted. And so we'd probably start with that because as we understand it, the primary goal for Exquadrum is to provide better directional access to their facility, not relying on Sabre Street, but instead relying on effectively this driveway location. So we'd probably work with them in trying to identify something that would be more so consistent with our already adopted sign program that's out there.
And so just to throw this out there, I mean, I think about what you said about this being a highly valued tenant, and I mean, certainly all of our tenants are, but Exquadrum in particular, what comes to my mind is the great contributions to our community, our students certainly, and in job training, et cetera, et cetera. I know that when I've gone out there in the past and, there's been a few times where I've had to, make a U-turn and go back around because it wasn't clear to me where to go, we could go in. So when, presuming that this council moves forward to give you direction to go back to Exquadrum and have some discussions, are you amenable to maybe going above and beyond the current program that we have? If it's reasonable. Do you know what I'm saying? In honor of the great contributions to our community.
It's hard for me to say yes because the sign program that we've developed out there is part of a specific plan, I believe. And so with that, to the extent it's something greater than what already has been adopted by either the commission or the council or both, I'd have a problem with that. And I think you should have a problem with me just unilaterally doing something that's above and beyond what you've already authorized. So to the extent it's not encroaching into that territory, we'll do everything as staff within the existing framework to help them out.
If there is were to be a request that might be, and I'm just asking all the questions I can think of asking here. If there were to be a proposal of some sort, and I certainly haven't had any conversations with Exquadrum, so I wouldn't know, of something great that would go beyond what we currently have, would you be amenable to bringing that back to the council if you believe it's a reasonable request?
If I believed it's reasonable, but again, we have existing frameworks, not only with the specific plan, but we also have, there's also a property owners association that was formed out there as well. So there's definitely some effort that has to be coordinated with others that certainly can act beyond our ability to control.
Got it. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Metzler. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, this is essentially just was always an alley access, correct? When the Air Force Base was operating.
Your memory may be better than mine in that regard.
And I think it probably is. Okay. I'll invite a motion for the item.
Yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move that the council direct the city manager and his staff to um, uh, confer and collaborate with Exquadrum to find a means in which to address the concerns that Exquadrum has with directions and signage, et cetera.
For clarification, does that mean to accept staff's recommendation to deny the request?
It would include that, yes. Well, I mean, it assumes that mine overrides staff's recommendation.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilman Ms. Jones and a second by Councilman Irving.
No, I did not. I was going to, I thought she said that it includes to deny the
Well,
request.
and so maybe let me rephrase that
Because it's
because
not clear
it's inferred, right? I'm not.
Don't infer.
I'm stating
Oh, okay.
that I'm not. Well, in my motion it did, but I am stating that I'm simply making a motion separate and distinct from staff's recommendation.
Okay, I'm clear.
Yeah.
Second. So we have a motion made by Councilman Jones and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Harriman. Are there any comments on the pending motion?
I have none. Thank you.
No comments.
All right. Madam Clerk, will you take the vote?
Councilmember Irving?
No.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman?
Yes.
Motion passes with Councilmember Irving voting no.
We have now taken action to
Send staff to work with Exquadrum.
okay. So say that again. Please.
The gist of it was to have staff work with Exquadrum as it relates to their request.
Okay. There it is. You heard it. How's that? We've now taken action.
Thank you, sir. At this time, we'll move on to item 23, city manager reports. Mr. Metzler, you're on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Just a couple of items. First, on the animal services side of the house, the animal services team will be at the High Desert Farmers Market at VVC this Thursday, February 20th, between the hours of 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Be opportunity to stop by to view the pets available for adoption or foster. Animal Services will also be hosting a free first-time licensing and microchipping event on Saturday, February 22nd, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the new Animal Care and Adoption Center located on East Street. Free first-time licensing and microchipping is available to City of Victorville residents only. On the engineering side of the house this week, Belco Construction installed new decorative traffic signal poles located at 7th Street and Forest Avenue as a part of the 7th Street traffic signal modification project. Decorative traffic signal poles will be installed at 7th Street and B Street this week, marking significant progress towards the completion of that capital improvement project. Also, speaking of engineering, a shout out to the engineering department who's celebrating Engineers Week this week. Engineers Week was founded in 1951 by the National Society of Professional Engineers and is celebrated the week of George Washington's birthday in honor of the first president's background as an engineer and land surveyor. In addition to that, we've got our project list. I'll follow this presentation up with you via email, and you'll have that project list so you can peruse that and see what the status is of certain projects going through the development process. That's all I have at this time, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. This time, item 24, discussion and possible action regarding upcoming agenda items. Member Jones.
No request. Thank you.
Councilmember Irving.
Yes, I have one request. I move that by the next regular council meeting, that this council agendize an item for discussion and possible action to direct the city manager to purchase a tiered sponsorship package on behalf of the city for Pride Week 2025 and Pride Prom 2025 to be held in June 2025 at Victor Valley College, and that the sponsorship for each event not exceed $5,000.
Do I have a second on that motion? I'll second on that motion. Madam Clerk, would you take the vote, please?
Councilmember Godin,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes?
Councilmember Jones.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman,
Yes.
Mayor Becerra.
Yes.
Motion passes with Councilmember Jones voting no.
Anything else, Councilmember?
No, that's it. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Godin, do you have anything to upcoming agenda items?
I have none. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Member Tim Harriman?
Yes, there's been an issue that's come up around, it's on a street that I travel quite a bit, and it seems to me like it needs some signage. So I'd like to, probably not saying it right, but I believe there's a yield sign that needs to be erected at Bear Valley Road, between Mall and Pacoima. There's a lane end there, and there's always some traffic problems there. So I guess I would move to visit the possibility of a sign located in that position.
Stand by. Is that enough information or too much information? Mr. Dubrowski?
I don't believe that's too much information to have that put on the agenda.
Mr. Metzler, are you with him? Right there by the Ora Grand Wash.
I'm
And,
tracking, yes.
And so which agenda would you like that on?
Which agenda?
Which agenda?
Yeah, do you want
Oh,
it,
next council meeting. I'm sorry.
and that is for a discussion and possible action.
Yes, ma'am.
I second that.
We have a second. I was going to say the thing. Madam Clerk, would you take the vote, please?
Councilmember Godin,
Yes.
Councilmember Irving,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman,
Yes.
Mayor Becerra.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And I have nothing. Item 25, reports from council member. Councilmember Jones,
I have none at this time. Thank you.
Councilmember Godin,
I have none. Thank you.
Councilmember Irving,
I have, no, nothing. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harriman,
I have nothing.
and I have nothing. Thank you very much for everybody being here for your time. It's 7:51 and this meeting's adjourned.